I just put the workbook in the chat. So, if you want to print that, you may want to follow along and write some things because, I find that that works much better if you shut all your windows, if you have something to engage with. Multitasking is highly overrated. So, um, if we go through this together, then, things go much, much better. So, today we're talking about content, which is pretty much anything. Visual content, text content, articles, videos, and so on. And I know you guys are all involved in writing or creating content of some type. And I just did a poll on my LinkedIn about content and asked people, what is the most difficult part about creating content? And the four options were coming up with relevant ideas, uh, actually finding the time to generate the content, getting approvals, and then getting engagement on their content. Those were the four things that people had the most trouble with. And it was an almost even split of people who had one problem over another. So it wasn't one thing. It's like everything, it's depending on who you are, it can be difficult to create as much content as we would like. So today I kind of wanted to talk about how content is not just a chore, it's a way of getting other things done. It's a more efficient way of getting other things done. Content is the best way, for me anyway, to get sales consultations. They all come from our content. They have seen a video, they read something, and then they decide to schedule an appointment with me. So I would rather build a piece of content and maybe get 2 direct messages and a phone call out of the deal than spend an equal amount of time beating the bushes and, writing DMs and calling people out of the blue and doing the cold calling and things like that. So for me, I would rather do the inbound than the outbound. So today's message is kind of ask not what you can do for your content, but what can your content do for you? And if it's not doing what you want it to do, then it's likely that maybe we're not focusing the right way, or we need to do things a little bit differently. So John, you're the statistics guy. Are you surprised by any of this? 97% of marketers use content marketing, and 84% of B2B marketers already use advanced analytics tools. And
Well,
90, oh, go ahead.
the successful ones.
Okay. That's fair. Were you surprised by any of that?
No.
No?
No.
Wow. A 90% statistic. That doesn't surprise you. I'm shocked.
No, it's
But
this those percentages have to be of the people that are successful.
that's true. Okay. That's fair. All right. So, by the end of today, hopefully, everyone who's on the call will be able to determine what are the topics that will do the most good for your bottom line, whatever it is. If your objective is more customers, more investors, more students, more clients, more whatever that objective is, hopefully we'll create the type of content that is the best for the bottom line. We'll be able to confidently plan, outline, and create content. Not everybody is good at everything, but a team effort usually works really well. We want to put together a great approval process to ensure that your content resonates and that you feel good about the content that goes out. Let me just ask for a show of hands. How many people have ever put out a piece of content that you wish you hadn't?
Oh, I'm sure I have.
Okay. All right. So usually that is a result of your review process, whatever it is, or your lack of a review process. A lot of us try to wing content. We try to just, we think that we don't take it seriously enough, really, is the outcome, or we try to do it too fast. So we'll talk about how to prevent that. And then also how to get more engagement for the content that you do have. And in a lot of cases, you can repurpose some old content. It was just had bad plumbing, or wasn't aimed right, or wasn't positioned right, or something. And that's why it flopped. Not because it's bad content, but because we didn't frame it right, or we didn't put it in front of the right people at the right time, in the right format, right? Okay. So on page 2, what I want you to do is circle 3. You take your circle. Everybody who's been in any of our workshops has seen this circle. Our sales process starts with prospecting, making an approach, uh, putting people in a holding pattern if they're not ready yet, or going directly from approach to sales. Sometimes we can skip over that holding pattern, but a lot of times that is there. I would say 80-90% of the time we have the holding pattern step. We have our sales, and then we have referrals and testimonials. So which part of that wheel is broken for you? Where's the flat spot on your wheel? So if you're a brand new company, then prospecting is your biggest problem because you need to get prospects before you can even run the wheel, right? If you have been in business for a while, but you find that you're making approaches and people are falling out of your holding pattern because it takes too long for them to get approvals or for them to do whatever and so on, then the holding pattern is where we need to focus on content. If you're great up until the point of actually closing the sale, then that's the content we need. And if you're making lots of sales, but you're not getting referrals, testimonials, repeat business, and so on, then that's the focus that you need. So look for the flat spot on your wheel, whatever it is. Again, if you're a new company, it's probably prospecting, right? And then determine, and for some people, you've got more than one flat spot. So, you may say, I need to boost my approaches. I need better approaches. And I need to boost the closing process because, my holding pattern is great, but people are just not closing. People can't make the decision. They're just sitting on the fence forever and it's just not working. So then that's the content that you need. Does that make sense? Do you need another example there? Or is everybody cool with all this?
Oh, good.
All good? Okay, fantastic. All right, so everybody's got 3 things circled on page 2. We'll move on. Okay, so before you start creating content, every successful piece of marketing content, every article, every post, every video is a mini campaign. And I may be biased, but I think that everything is a marketing problem. I think almost any problem that people have on the face of this earth is a marketing problem. They either didn't convince somebody of something, or they were not as persuasive as they could have been, or they didn't put together a win-win offer, or whatever it is. I think every problem can be solved by one of these 3 things. So, the list is, who do you want to convince? Who is your potential audience? You may have a top 10 already defined, or you may not, and that's totally cool. But you want to think about, who are the people that you need to reach to solve this problem. So, if you're prospecting and to use this example, DOMs who have never heard of your product before, and they've been doing just fine without it for 20 years. And then all of a sudden you're saying, you know what, there's a better way to do X, Y, or Z. So that's going to be a hard sell because those guys are tough and they're very set in their ways and they do what they do. And they've been successful because they do things the way they do them. And something about those folks, right? So if this is your market, heaven help you. But it can be done. That's a specific audience and you know something about them and you know what your challenge is. And the more you know about your audience, the better this is going to go. Your audience might be flight school managers who are overworked. So maybe you sell scheduling software or something like that. So you need to help them understand that your product will be a better solution for them. They may be people who have purchased your service and are wondering what they've gotten themselves into. So if you have a lot of people who do chargebacks or request a refund after trying your product and they don't understand it well enough to make it work, then that's your biggest problem. And that is the content that you need to be focused on. So does everybody have an idea of who their list is? Anybody want to share who their list is? My list is marketing professionals and sales professionals who work for a marketing company that are not making as many sales as they would like. So, I'm pretty clear on my list. And then there's many sub lists from that. There are the C-level founders and executives and things like that. people like Michael and Kelly, who have a company and they know what they're doing and they make all the decisions themselves. So it's a fairly simple process for them to make a decision. And I know something about them. I know that they are very determined and they know their product very well, and they are really fun to work with. So they're some of my favorite types of clients. Anybody want to share who your clients are or who your list is? Hey, Kelly, good to see you. You can unmute yourself. We have a small group today, so you're welcome to share anything that you'd like. Once you figured out who your list is, you want to figure out what are their worries, concerns, and hopes, and what are they the most likely to, what's keeping them up at night? What are the problems that they're having? Is it cash? Is it time? Is it convenience? Is it that they've had a bad experience with marketing companies in the past because somebody, some SEO company approached them with a crazy letter that said that they're doing a terrible job with their SEO and they don't understand what's in the letter, but they know that they're doing something wrong and they want to do something different. What are their worries? What are their concerns? And what are their hopes? Right? So that is all goodness. The more you know.
Hey, Paula.
Yeah.
So in the book, last month's book, or I guess August book, Masterful Marketing.
Yeah.
Which I actually almost finished over the holiday. I'm a little behind.
Good. Congratulations.
But I'm trying to find the spot. I'm flipping through right now, but he made the comment that the whole problem solution approach is old school, and that's not really what you want to do. And I'm trying to find the section.
Okay.
But I'm trying to remember exactly what it was that he was referring to instead. I think he was saying, don't look at the problem per se as much as try to create that distance.
The ideal future state, right?
The ideal future state, right?
Right. Exactly. So, it's the same thing. You still have to identify, you have to meet with them where they are before you take them anywhere, right? So, if you're talking to overworked flight school managers, they're not going to see a beautiful, fantastic, easy, fabulous future unless you can jump into the problem with them. And basically right here, all we're doing is research. We haven't created any content yet. We just want to make sure that we understand who we're writing to and what their problems are. So we may not want to spend a lot of time on their problems, but we really need to understand them deeply. I think the more deeply we can understand their problems, the more our content is going to resonate with them, whether or not that's the substance of what we write.
Yeah, okay, I found it. It's on page 3031. And to me, it still sounds like problem solution, but he put it in a different framework. Instead of calling it problem solution, he calls it, innovation and upsell.
Okay.
But
I sometimes have the opinion that people who write these books are wanting to reframe things just a little bit to make them sound new when they're not.
Yeah.
So, it may be still the problem solution, but just a slightly different wrinkle on the same issue. But yeah, excellent point. Thank you for that. Okay, so everybody's pretty clear about who their list is. You may actually have a list of 10 individuals. That's where we actually really want to drive, is down to a list of 10, because that's a good number to have a little bit of diversity, but you still have a very specific idea of what these people have in common and, what it is about these people that is really going to appeal to them about your product or service.
So, Paula, you're saying take the 10 people and create a persona from them. What are the common attributes, and develop this persona that you can use for all of the marketing to create this amalgam that says this is the ideal person. Is that correct?
Yeah, it helps me to be able to, think of a specific person when I'm writing, or a specific 10 people when I'm writing, And I don't really like the term persona because that implies fiction. I want 10 actual human beings, right? That I could actually sell to.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. And then, I'm going to be writing different paragraphs to different people and so forth, or I'm going to be thinking of different people when I'm putting different things together. But those are the people that you want to think about when you're creating your content. Is this going to appeal to these 10 people? And then you can go back through it 10 times if you really wanted to. And if they're specific enough that you think it would be worth doing, 10's a number that you can manage and think about without it being, you're writing to the masses, right? Or you're writing to the one, both of which are wrong for one reason or another, right? Okay. Everybody has a pretty good feel for who your list is.
So
Okay.
here's
Yeah.
a question.
Yeah.
I've been told
Mm-hmm.
that you don't approach your ideal customer, and this would be like a one-on-one pitch type thing.
Right.
You don't approach your ideal customer first. You maybe address number 10 first, and you get some practice and feedback so that if you haven't quite categorized what their concerns, worries, and hopes are, or you haven't quite figured out exactly what all the demographics and psychographics are that properly represent them, you get the feedback and you refine it, and you do that a couple of times before you kind of burn the bridge with your most likely customer.
Right.
So do you recommend that, or how do you reconcile that advice with kind of this process?
Right. That is an excellent point. And in aviation, we have often a really narrow pool of prospects, and we can't afford to burn any of them with a practice run. So right now, today's workshop is about content. So we haven't built anything yet. And the practice idea doesn't really hold water because we're going to refine this content as, we're going to build it, refine it, build it, refine it, build it, refine it, and so on before it goes in front of a customer. When we're talking about sales approaches, and actually next month's workshop is going to be about sales, and we're going to do some role playing, and John Williams and I are probably going to embarrass each other quite a bit. But that is what we do with those role plays, is because you can't, you have to practice on somebody, and so practicing on the group, practicing on me, practicing on somebody other than an ideal customer. I wouldn't start with your number 10. I'd start with me, right? And you can start with John. You can start with your, anybody who is in that category that is a friend or family or associate or something like that. That's not a potential customer, not a prospect. Gotcha. But that's an excellent point. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you've got your list. Your offer needs to be super compelling. So a lot of people, when they write content, especially if it's just educational or entertaining content, you don't have to really have an offer other than by the end of this, you're going to be entertained. Or by the end of this, you're going to find this funny. Or by the end of this, you're going to know something that you can share at cocktail parties. That might be all the offer is of a particular piece of content. And that's perfectly fine if that's the stage that you're in. So if you're just building rapport for your holding pattern, and this is most of the content that we build. The vast majority of content that we build is kind of that rapport building for the holding pattern. If you were to look at the entire body of work that we've done for any particular client that we've been with for any length of time, most of the content that we've built is built to sustain the relationship, to build the relationship over time, to establish credibility, to entertain, to enlighten, to do whatever. If you are at a different stage in your marketing, so if you're doing a first contact, then you got to have a much better offer than just we're going to entertain you, right? Or I'd love to have 15 minutes of I love this pitch. Can we sit down for 15 minutes to discuss X, Y, or Z without a benefit to me, right? Can we sit down for 15 minutes to discuss your car insurance? It's not a specific offer, and it falls flat because I have no interest, right? So your offer is going to have to be tailored to your audience. It has to be something that they want. And we've talked about this before, and we've got an entire worksheet on how to how to sell a consultation, how to sell a free consultation. A lot of people think those don't need to be sold. You just offer it and people will take you up on it. Not true, right? There's a lot of people offering consultations. There's a lot of people offering investment opportunities. There's a lot of people offering products and services. But if you can create a consultation where you say, in 30 minutes, you'll walk out with 3 different comps on your specific aircraft and reasons why you would choose one over another. You need to be super specific in your offer in order to make that attractive enough for those 10 people to go for it, and you go through it with, and I do this with John Williams all the time. John Davies, I'm sorry. We have 2 Johns in the meeting, so I have to differentiate. I will create a piece of content and I would say, would you go for this? I'll create an offer. Would you go for this offer if you were this guy? I want you to role play one of these 10 people, and would you go for this offer? And you tell me no. Usually the first 4 or 5 times out of the box, right?
Only knows the right answer.
That's true. Sometimes you tell me yes, and then I know I've got a winner. So if you can come up with an offer that one of your top 10 people, or 5 out of the 10, or 7 out of the 10, you think that person would do it, or would go for that offer. And if that's an offer for a free consultation, if that's an offer for a demo, if that is an offer for a trial product, if that is an offer for a, some people sell their product outright. If it's software or something like that, people will just buy it. But most of the time we have an interim step, either a consultation or a demo or a trial or something along those lines. So what is the offer? Does anybody want to share an offer that works for you? Kelly, I know this is your first meeting, so I'm going to put you on the spot if you'd like. If not, that's totally fine if anybody else wants to jump in. But, I know you have inventory items that would be attractive to specific people. Do you usually do a consultation first, or do you go straight into, I have this product available? I think often it might be more straightforward for you.
Well, I generally go in, honestly, from a relationship building perspective, not only about what I have today, but what I have to offer going forward, kind of as transparency, chit chat-ish. And then I would follow that with, I'm in a unique situation in a unique business that I have off market surplus inventory that is 7.5 and 7.6 material, and what might you be interested in? Then I'm not really, I don't like sales. It is like I have done every position in aviation, but sales is, I think I told you, I don't like to bug people. So if I can chit chat, I'm all in. But if I have to call you and say, I have part number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I would rather jump in a lake, because it's just, I don't want to bug people. And I was in supply chain and I didn't like it. So I don't want to do it. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the color as well. I don't think anybody in the room knows Kelly yet. She's, unless you do, we'll do introductions at the end. We usually jump straight into the content and stuff like that. But Kelly's new with us, and she's with Extrinsic Aviation. And anyway, no, I appreciate that. We do not want to be that guy, right? That is the last thing in the world we want to do. So, but we do need to move product. We do need to make money. We do need to, make that happen. So that is actually probably a pretty good approach, or a pretty good offer for that approach. And every time you do this, going from a prospect to an approach is like, hey, can we take this conversation to email? Especially if you're on LinkedIn or Facebook or something like that, that might be your approach. Going from approach to holding pattern might be, would you mind if I sent you my newsletter, which is about tips and tricks about marketing and so forth. Going from the holding pattern to sales, your offer might be, would you like to look at some specifics of what it would look like for us to work together? Or, some of the specific products that I have in inventory right now, or what it would look like to be an investor for my project, or what it would look like to be a client of my consultancy. So that would be your offer here. To get from here to here, your offer might be, you've just made a purchase. That's fantastic. Is there anybody else that that's in the market for this? That might be struggling to find hard to find parts, or somebody who's looking for a great investment opportunity, or somebody who is looking for the type of service that I offer. So does that make sense? Everybody kind of gets how this fits and how we're doing this? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. Okay, so, and then we get into the presentation. The problem, or the thing that most people do, is they jump straight into presentation. They haven't done any of the things that we've talked about for the past 26 minutes, right? We're 26 minutes into this process. We haven't written anything yet. We haven't even decided whether this is going to be a LinkedIn post or a video, a YouTube video, or whether this is going to be a phone call, or whether this is going to be a sales presentation that we walk into somebody's office and do. We haven't decided that yet. But now that we know all of those things, we know our list, we know our offer. Now we figure out, okay, I know what I'm offering, and I know what piece of information I need to deliver, and I know what their questions are likely to be. What is the most effective way to present this information? And if it's super simple, then, it's just text bullets in a social post, right? If it is more complicated, it might be, if it's really complicated, it might be like an email series or a mini course or something like that. So, if you sell a very complex product or service and people don't even know what questions to ask about it, an email series, a mini course, a mini podcast series of 6 episodes, something like that, a video series, something like that might be the best way to present that information, so that you're kind of bringing people along in convenient, bite-sized, easy, compelling, snack-sized. You're not serving them a steak dinner when they only have 5 minutes. That's not attractive, even if it's the most attractive steak dinner that you've ever created. If John was on his way to somewhere and I wanted to feed him dinner and he only had 5 minutes, it wouldn't matter how great a dinner we put together. It just isn't convenient for him, and it isn't consumable for him. So we usually start with the smaller bites, like social posts, emails, other things like that, when we're in prospecting, and then we get a little bit longer as we go into approach. So then this might be things like longer videos and other things. We go into a holding pattern. We can vary the length of some of these things. We have some snacks, information snacks. We have some full meals. We have some other things in the holding pattern. In sales, we need to be really substantial. So we need to be super complete, super transparent, make sure we're giving them as much information as they need, and maybe even a little more than that, because they can always skip through it. But we don't want to be withholding any information in the sales process. And then once we get to referrals and testimonials, great, we can vary that as well. So you say, and I know there's probably a question coming, if it's on my website, which of these functions is it supposed to be doing? And that's a good question. For most people, their website's primary function is prospecting and holding pattern. So we want to kind of do a combination of those things. It's either the first time they've heard of you when they get to your website, or they're looking you up because they've already heard about you in some way. So they're somewhere in this category. Almost nobody does actual sales on their website. Some people do referrals and testimonials. They have a landing page for that on their website, but for the most part, it's these 3 areas that we're talking about on a website. So if you're creating content if you decide that the website is the best place to deliver this information, then you want to think about it in that terms. So John Davies, we just had a conversation yesterday about, should I have my prices on my website? And the answer is, if you're doing prospecting, maybe not. But if it's also your holding pattern and part of your sales process, if you want to be performing those functions, then absolutely, that should be on your website, because they can do a lot of that research themselves before they ever contact you. And a lot of people want to. And, your competitors are just 2 clicks away. So why not give them more information rather than less, right? Okay, cool. So, we talked about, does it fit into their current habits of media consumption? Is this in the magazines that they're reading, or is this on the social media channels that they're on? For advertising for a flight school, we are absolutely going to use TikTok. If we are advertising for aviation insurance, we are absolutely not going to use TikTok, right? It really depends on the audience, and it really depends on who that is that we're trying to capture. Cool. All right. So you have some thoughts about the presentation? What would be the best way to do this? All right. Okay. So your turn. Write it in. Who is your list? What is your offer? And what is the presentation? If you're squishy about this, you're not going to be very effective. And the reason is because confused customers don't buy. They just don't. If your competitor is really clear about what they have and what they offer, even if it is not a precise fit, but they feel comfortable about what they're getting for their money, and they feel good about the transaction, and they feel like they trust this person because they're being transparent and they're being clear, they will go with somebody who is clear, right? Over somebody who may have a more perfect fit, but is squishy or unclear or nebulous about what they're offering.
And let me give you an example.
You have an example. Oh, good.
Oh, heck yes.
Oh, heck yes.
30-year roof on this building,
Mhm.
24 years into it, looking for a roofer. We had people out here from a 48-year-old company. You'd think they'd know better. These guys come out here and give the pitch. They climb up on the roof, they measure it all out, and then they try to sell us the product. And okay, fine.
Mhm.
Then they leave and say, we'll be back next week with a quote. Well, that's fine. You got to go back, do your research, make sure you're doing whatever. So the next week, a different guy comes out here and says, my name is, and I'm here to measure your roof and give you a quote from the same company. I said, well, wait a minute. You guys were out here last week. We were? Now, come on. You'd think that these guys use the same CRM. A 48-year-old company bound to have a CRM. Even if it's a spreadsheet.
You'd hope.
So we got 3 different sales guys trying to come out here and sell us, and nobody's talking to each other. So and then the supervisor finally called and said, well, it's our policy. I said, I don't care about your policy. You're trying to sell to me, and you got 3 different guys coming out here. You know what? We're going on a business trip. I may or may not call you when I get back. Oh, well, but I've already contacted other roofing companies in the area. I'm happy to go with one of those.
Right. Even though you really liked these guys' product, you really liked their marketing material so far, but, they lost you at being nebulous about what they were offering. They couldn't give us a quote in a timely way, those kinds of things.
Well, if they can't keep their own stuff straight, how am I supposed to trust them to do a project that's going to cost $15,000 to $25,000?
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, if people, and this is something that I struggle with because we offer a pretty wide variety of services and a pretty, so each client is different. Every person on the phone today and every person, that's on my client list has a different set of services that we provide for them. So what is it that we do? We help aviation companies sell more of their products and services. How do we do that? We have 3 service levels or 5 service levels, depending on the situation. So we will do whatever it takes to help you sell more products and services. How are we going to do that? We'll figure that out, but we have to be super clear on who it is we're selling to, what it is that we're offering, and how we're presenting that information. All right. And chances are depending on whatever this thing is, if it's prospecting and if it's sales in particular, you're going to want to have more than one way of presenting this information because not everybody consumes everything. So, you may have an email series, you may have there's a lot of things that we put on Basecamp and Circle and send as an email and other things as well, because we want to make it super convenient for our clients or our prospects. We don't want to make it convenient for us. So even if I dislike a particular medium, I think everybody who's been with us for any length of time knows that I really, really, really hate the phone. I really hate outbound calls. I really dislike that because I feel like I'm interrupting people and because I almost never catch them anyway. So it goes to their voicemail and then I end up fumbling around and it's just not as clear as if I sent them a text or a written communication of some kind. So, but some of the demographics that we serve are really into the phone and they feel like if I have not called them on the phone in the last month or so, I'm neglecting them, even if they've gotten a lot of other information from me. And even if I'm serving them really well in every other way. Jeremy Cox is no longer with us, but when he was around, he was one of those people. If I didn't call him every month, he felt like he was being neglected. And he's like, where have you been? And I'm like, you've been getting my emails and you've been getting my information. But, that was his means of communication. So it's about them. It's not about you. Right. So I called Jeremy all the time. And that's the way it worked. Right. Okay. Last question. How will you know if this content was successful? And the answer is, did it solve your flat spot? Right. And this is so much more helpful if you know what your numbers are. How many prospects did you bring in last week to your CRM? How many approaches did you make to those prospects? And, were they successful or not? How many people do you have in your holding pattern or your email list right now? How many sales did you make last month? How many referrals or testimonials did you get last month? So the way that you're going to know if this is successful is, did it improve the number in the square that you're trying, or in the part of the circle that you're trying to fix, right? Cool. All right. So you may have metrics for that. You may say, you know what, I need to improve my prospecting by 20%. I need to bring in 20% more prospects than I did last month. And I'm going to deploy this piece of content and see if that does the job. You may not be as specific. Usually I'm not. If it goes up any, then I'm happy. I feel like that piece of content was successful. So, more specific is better. But even if you don't do numbers, at least you know what you're trying to accomplish, right? Okay. So everybody's got written in their list, their offer, at least one idea for a presentation, and some criteria of how will you know if this content was successful. If you're not keeping track of your numbers, this becomes infinitely more difficult, right? Okay. All right. So now what? Now,
Well,
now we get to build something. Go ahead.
Before you do that,
okay.
Keep saying if you don't know your numbers. Well, if you don't know your numbers, how are you measuring?
Right.
I mean, how do you measure something without it being reduced to a number?
You can't. There is no such thing as measuring without numbers. Right? I mean, you can go on gut feel, but that's not marketing, that's witchcraft. We don't do witchcraft. We do marketing.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So you have to have numbers for each of those steps in your process. And it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're using a CRM, that's great. If you're using a spreadsheet, that's great. If you're using hash marks on your whiteboard, that's fine. As long as you've got numbers, that's cool. All right. Good question, though. All right. Now we get to build something. And we are 40 minutes into this workshop and we haven't built anything yet. But that front loading process really helps come out with a much better product, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So the first thing you do is you draft whatever content you're going to draft. And I know like Jolena is really, really good at drafting really cool content. And, there's a lot of people on our team that do that as well. So once you know who your list, your offer, and your presentation is, you decide, you know what, we need something to engage people in our holding pattern. Let's do a Trivia Tuesday, and let's do some really engaging pieces of trivia that people are more likely to be interested in because they'll have something interesting to say at their next cocktail party or whatever. So you draft the content, and this could be you, or this could be ABCI if you're working with us. We do this for our clients as well. Next step is edit. And that is anybody but whoever wrote it, right? Okay. So if I wrote it, I cannot edit it. And this is how we prevent the problem that we talked about at the beginning, where we talked about who has put out a piece of content that you wish you hadn't. This is the step. These are the steps where we prevent that sort of thing from happening.
In fact, yesterday was a very good example when you gave me something to take a look at.
This workbook, right? That you're looking at right now. John edited it. I wrote it. John edited it, right?
Yeah, but there were things when even after I edited it, I said, look, you need to change this. She says, why? It says what I want. I said, does it? Read it.
And I read it, and I read it the same way I wrote it. And he's like, no, read this word, and it was misspelled. So that was not cool. Okay. Edit can be anybody but you. The review is either you being the client or your boss. That is another kind of a thing that we need to do. So some of us have legal departments, some of us have communications departments, some of us have other people that we need, other clients, other stakeholders that need to have a review cycle in our process. In Basecamp, we just do that with a task. We assign it to the next person when you're done with it, and it goes on to the next phase of the process. Once they are happy with it, then you publish it. And that can be done by ABCI, that can be done by scheduling software, that can be done by your webmaster if it's a new page on your website or whatever. It can be done by you. Okay. And remember, we are creating marketing content. We are not creating fine literature. This is not War and Peace. This is not Shakespeare. This is not anything else. Sometimes incomplete sentences, sometimes messy is effective. It's just a question of, does this accomplish what we need it to accomplish? All right. I love this quote by Ernest Hemingway: write drunk, edit sober. That can be metaphorically speaking, or that can be
whatever.
Yeah, actually speaking, whatever. I don't really recommend that you get drunk to write, but yeah, Michael, you do need to invoke your alternate personality when you edit. I'd really recommend that a different organism edit, even if it is ChatGPT, get somebody else to, is ChatGPT an organism? Can we say that? Or is it it's not an organism, it is an entity, but somebody else needs to do your editing other than you, other than the person who wrote it. Okay. There's another program called Grammarly that's gotten a lot better since it incorporated AI. And there are several others that you may know of that are pretty cool. Okay. So what do you do at each phase of this process? So we've got our draft, edit, review, and publish. So draft, basically, most of this is thinking. Some of it is actually moving things around on your computer and typing words into your computer. But if you spend 50% of your time or more thinking about it and so on, then you're going to end up with a better end product. All right. I love using ChatGPT for the drafting process because it will come up with some great relevant data, facts, examples, etc. You do need to fact check them, and we'll talk about that in a minute. It's good at an outlining as well, and so on. So what do you guys think? Do you use any particular tools for drafting? I also like Canva. They have some AI tools in Canva now.
Well, I like to take a previous document and slice and dice because it's easier for me than looking at the page trying to figure out what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
But
And
I even code that way when I used to code.
Mm-hmm. ChatGPT does a really good job of that. A lot of times I will write something using ChatGPT and then throw it away, but at least I have something, right? And I may not use a single word from the generated text, but it's a great way to start the process.
I just started using a new Google AI called Text FX.
Yeah. What do you
Um, it's very thought provoking for me. So, like, one of the tools in there is called Unfold. And basically, what it does is you write in one word and then it like puts it with other words. So, my word was extrinsic. And so it comes up with extrinsic risk, extrinsic rewards, extrinsic motivation. And so then you can pin those, and that might be good blog topics or LinkedIn posts. Going forward, just I'm one of those, if I have a spark, I can generally go somewhere. If you ask me to just come up with it off the top of my head, it's not going to happen. So, there's all kinds of words that paired with that. So I really like it.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you for that. I've not used that one yet. I've heard of it, but we'll have to play with it. That's fun.
Yeah.
Midjourney is a great tool for generating images, and it does a better or worse job. It's one of those things you got to have time if you're going to do images in anything. Canva is probably the quickest, but Midjourney is also really good for generating images, or at least giving you ideas about where to go with an image. Sometimes that's all you need. So that's drafting. Drafting videos, we use we'll draft videos using Photo Booth or the phone or whatever, and then use Final Cut Pro for editing and reviewing process and so on. Okay, so editing, it's not just is everything spelled right? It's just, did we do what we said we were going to do? And you have to share that with your editor. So what is the list, the offer, and the presentation that we're trying to achieve with this? If John doesn't know that, he doesn't know how to edit something that I give him. And so we always have like a 5-minute conversation before he starts editing anything after I hand it to him. And I'm like, well, it's obvious. And he's like, no, it's not. And we have to go over, the list, offer, the presentation before he'll start editing, which is very smart, as much as I sometimes would like to throw something at you and run away because I have other things to do. That conversation is actually really important. Okay. This is another thing. It's, is the formatting the best way to convey what we're trying to achieve? So a lot of times we'll write something and then throw out the writing. We'll create a PowerPoint or a keynote or something like that from a written document and throw away the written document because it was not the best way to communicate what we're trying to communicate. So that's actually part of the editing process. Did we nail the format, or is there something else that would be better? All right. And then reviewing. The most important part of this in the aviation industry, or at least with our clients, is it aligned with your current business objectives? And I just screwed up one for a client the other day where I made this beautiful video comparing a G280 to several other aircraft, and it was for a broker. And it was a great video. It was really amazing, and everything in it was correct, and it was beautiful, and it was perfect. The problem is they are currently trying to, when I started building this video, they were trying to sell a G280. They had already sold it. So wrong time for that piece of content, is great to keep in the bucket for future, but they don't have one to sell. So, that's no longer aligned with their business objective. So, you can have a fabulous piece of content that doesn't work anymore. Another thing is one of our clients ran out of fuel and we had all of these fuel ads in their queue for social media. So we needed to pull those until they get another shipment of fuel. So, that's something that we really need to keep our eye on. That's why we insist on office hours, because we want to stay aligned with your your business objectives and make sure that even if it's good content, it actually is useful for you right now. Okay. And then, of course, publishing. One of the best things to do, test all the links, make sure they're functional. And there is an error on this page. If anybody catches it, I will send you a gift card. Because I didn't catch it, and John may have. Look at his copy. Yes, he caught it. I did not. So that was my fault entirely. I didn't spend enough time preparing for this meeting today. I got too busy with other things. And so even if your editor is perfect, you need to make sure that the publishing process, all those things come out the way they're supposed to. You can throw it in the chat, or you can raise your hand, or whatever you want to do. But,
I got it.
You got it. Okay, Kelly gets a gift card. You want to point it out for us?
Under publish the content, there's no space between share and on.
Yep, exactly. And I will show you. This is what John gave me this morning, right? You can see the circle. Didn't do it, so my fault entirely. But yeah, I mean, the more we do this review process and the more time we allow between this, because I actually wrote this last night very late, and John edited it, handed it to me this morning. So here we are. And I had 4 other meetings this morning besides this one. So you want to make sure that you allow enough time to create excellent content. And, so that is always a possibility to make that better. All right. Metrics and improvement. Of course, we use SEMrush as our metric for anything social or anything on a website. And those metrics are nice, but the real metric is this. What are your numbers for each of these phases of your sales process? And did we improve those numbers in the amount of time that you allowed? So, if it's something that you published on social media, you may give it a week, you may give it a month, whatever it is. Did it accomplish its objective? If it is something like a web page or something like that, you might need to give it 90 days or longer to figure out if it actually did its job. So, you want to measure how effective was this piece of content, not just with what you traditionally measure. Did it get engagement? Okay, well, that's nice, but did it get DMs? And did those DMs lead to sales consultations? And did those sales consultations close? That's the real metrics of any particular piece of content. And in general, sometimes you have fairly low expectations of this. Did it give you a better percentage? So, did it get better engagement? That may be all you need, because it kept people in your engagement or in your holding pattern longer. So it improved that number even incrementally. So what I would say, especially if you're starting out with content, you want to make sure that you've got content that does all of the functions you need in your sales process. And then once you've got all those pieces, then start working on improving them. Where are your holes, or where are your flat spots? That means that some of that content is not performing as well as it could, or you don't have the right kind of content, or it's not there at the right time, or it's not in the right place. So any thoughts on metrics improvement, anything like that? You guys all get SEMrush reports. Are they, aliens talking, or do they actually make sense? Do they contribute to what you're measuring? Is there anything that we could do to make this easier for you when we do content? I guess not. We're doing a great job, John. Okay. All right. So let's take a few minutes and just do introductions. I'd love to do that because we've got a couple of new people, and some of you guys know each other, some of you guys don't. But I'm Paula Williams. I help aviation companies sell more of their products and services. John, do you want to go next? And then I think it was John Davies that was on. We'll just do an order of appearance if that's okay.
Well, I'm John Williams, and I work for her. I do the back office stuff, a lot of it, cyber tech, CFO, pretend to be one of those on occasion, and
you play one on TV.
Editing.
Great. I think John Davies may have left us. He mentioned that he might have to leave early. Michael, did you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Michael Duke, and I am making aircraft 100% sustainable, affordable, and quiet. So we're a startup aircraft manufacturer, and we're excited about turning the aviation industry into something more sustainable.
Excellent. So, Lena, I think you were next to join us.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm Julina. I am from Aris Insurance Solutions. I'm actually an executive assistant and I work along with Tim, our boss, in assisting all of his tasks, such as managing his emails, his appointments with customers, and other tasks such as marketing, and including and joining this workshop and taking notes so we can relate this to Tim. That's all, Paula.
Thank you, and I'm glad you're here. I know you're really good at creating content and also editing as well. So thank you for that. And Nick, were you next? I think you were next.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Nick. I'm one of the many assistants for Tim. I handle the operations and technology for our team at Aris. It's nice to meet everyone here. Thank you.
Excellent. Good to see you. And then I'm not sure if it was Kelly or Stella that joined next.
Go for it, Kelly.
Okay. I'm Kelly Carlson, and I just started actually 2 companies. The one that I'm focusing on with Paula and the team is Extrinsic Aviation. I have a contract with PricewaterhouseCoopers to liquidate 7.5 and 7.6 surplus material out of the Fly Jamaica bankruptcy going forward. I have another company that I'm in the planning and proof of concept phase. Also, Michael, that has to do with sustainability, but more around aftermarket parts and the process that they go through after they've been identified as BER.
Excellent. Yeah, and it's really good to have you all. And Stella also?
I'm Stella. I'm with the ABCI group. I do copywriting for the group, and I'm really good at finding Paula's errors too.
Exactly. It's become like the national pastime, finding Paula's errors, which is great. I appreciate it. And yeah, I need all the help I can get, which is amazing. So I'm going to stay on for the next little while. If anybody has any specific questions about content or anything else, you're welcome to enter them in the chat or unmute and just let's talk and see if we can resolve them. Well, let me ask this. Was this what you were expecting? Did we cover what you wanted, or was there anything that you would like to have seen that we didn't cover?
I'll jump in. I thought it was very helpful. I'm always interested in guidance and helping me to organize, thoughts and structure things. So, I appreciate that. I don't think there's anything novel or, earth-shattering here, but it's nice to have a process, and by following the process, you usually get better results. That's one of the things we find as pilots, right? You have a checklist, follow the checklist, and you have fewer issues. So,
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. It was helpful.
Right. And I know you had, and you made an excellent point that content and the connection between content and sales is really, really important. So, we'll be overlapping a little bit next month when we talk about, elevator pitches and approaches and other things, and to do some role playing and things like that to kind of take it to the next step. So excellent. Thank you for that. Anybody else have thoughts or guidance or questions or tips that you've
just having been, this is my first one to sit in on. I would agree with what Michael said. It's absolutely been beneficial, and I do appreciate the list of items and thought-provoking prompts that say, if you follow these steps, you're going to have a good result. So for me, just having the visual is helpful in the thought-provoking side, as well as what Michael said, the organizational side. So thank you very much. And I need to connect with you at some point. And that's it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know we've got a meeting coming up, hopefully. And if not, we need to get one together because we got things to do. So great. Yeah, and one thing that we were told, at least, I used to work for Franklin Covey. I don't know if you're familiar with Stephen Covey, the whatever. Time management is what he's known for, but content is was one of his passions. And front loading your content was something that they emphasized in time management and also in content. So time management is better if you spend more time planning and less time executing. It sounds counterintuitive, but the concept of sharpening the saw before you start chopping down trees really makes a lot of sense. So, if there was one thing that I could emphasize to you, is that most people spend most of the time on this part of the process, and it really needs to begin when you're drafting with all of this, all of this planning before you start building things. Cool. All right. Well, thanks you guys for joining us, and we'll leave it there.